In this video, I'll be doing an in-depth explanation of my dividend portfolio tracking spreadsheet. So I've been investing in more dividend-focused stocks for about 3 years now. And over that time period, I've built up a spreadsheet to track these dividend stocks in my portfolio and just kind of give me some more data to hopefully help, for one, track the progress of the portfolio over time and see how it's progressing, see if it's kind of going in the right direction or not. And then also to just give me a better idea of, whether I am being successful as an investor. And that kind of goes back to the first point as well. But this video is just going to be a walkthrough of the spreadsheet and how I use some of the features to my advantage and give me a bit more, I guess, data and analysis about the companies I invest in and the portfolio as a whole. So as you can see, I use Google Sheets for my portfolio spreadsheet. I just like that it's on a web browser, so you can access it as long as you have internet from any device at any time. And you don't just have to have the actual document like you might have to with Microsoft Excel. And so this first page we're looking at here is just kind of a summary that gives us a bunch of data about all the companies I own. And on the surface, it's kind of a bit overwhelming, to be honest. But the great part about this is this column at the left here that has the ticker symbols. That's really the only thing that I have to input myself. And sometimes I might have to, select the sector as well. But then what I have is I have some scripts within Google Sheets, and these go out and run every single day, and they pretty much update a lot of the data here. And then a lot of the data is using Google Finance functions as well. So for the company name, it's just using a Google Finance function to fetch the name of the company and stuff like that. And then also some of these other values are calculated based on other things in the spreadsheet. So the number of shares I'm calculating based on all of the buys and sells of that specific company that I'm doing, which I'll explain a little bit more later. So I list out the shares here, the price of the company, and then just the day change and equity change of that specific ticker. And then this here is a kind of just a little graph that can give us an idea of what the stock price has looked like over the last year. And if it's green, that means it's up year over year. If it's red, it's down. And then this is the annual dividends paid per share. So this one I change manually, and then this one gets updated dynamically by the script. And that just allows us to be able to see when there's an increase, because the script will put an increase in there. And then that means the manual and the dynamic values are different, and it'll show a little flag here based on what percentage change it is. And then this is the current dividend yield, which is just based on the current dividend and the current stock price. And then this is my personal yield on cost, which is the current dividend paid, essentially divided by my average cost of shares. And if we see if the yield on cost is red, that means it's below the dividend yield, which is generally not great. It's just a product of the share price being down, generally speaking, unless the company cuts the dividend, which doesn't really happen in most cases in the companies that I own, and that's kind of the goal there. And then if it's green, that means that the yield on cost is higher than the current dividend yield, which is awesome. That means the company has either increased its dividend or the share price is higher than when I bought the company originally. And then this ratio is just kind of another way of giving us an idea of how much better the yield on cost is than the current dividend yield. So I'm just taking the yield on cost divided by the dividend yield. So you can see in the case of Aflac, for example, my yield on cost is almost 1.5 times as high as the dividend yield, which is pretty awesome. And then this is the annual dividends paid based on the number of shares I have. So that's how much each position is expected to pay me. And then this is the equity of each position. So how much is it worth in the market? And then this is the percentage of my overall portfolio that each position is. Moving on to some more dividend metrics. This is the dividend frequency, which just says how many times a year does it pay. All my companies right now are quarterly payers. And then this is the PSR, which is the peer sustainability ratio. It's just kind of a fun little metric that gives us an idea of how many shares the dividend would drip each time we get paid. So right now, all my numbers are really, really small because my portfolio is pretty small. But basically what that means is, for example, Leggett and Platt, if I were to drip the dividends back in and reinvest back in to the company when I get paid, which I actually don't right now directly, I would be able to buy about zero point 0.1 shares every single payment. So hopefully, most of these will be one in a few years or even greater than that, which would be awesome. So this next tab here is just the years of increasing dividends. So how long has the company kept up a record of increasing and paying an increasing dividend every single year. And then the next two columns are just the ex-dividend date and pay date. And then we get some formatting, highlighting based on if those dates are close in time, which is just something you can use to kind of check out what companies are going to be paying soon or going ex-dividend soon. Then the next category here is the beta, which is just a measure of volatility versus the overall market. So most of my companies are a little bit less volatile than the overall market, which I generally like. And then the next column here is 5-year dividend CAGR average. So this just says how much has the company on average raised their dividend over the last 5 years. And then the final column that's calculated here is the payout ratio, and that's just a percentage of the company's earnings that it pays out as a dividend. It's just measuring that percentage. And then this column here is just when usually the companies will announce a dividend raise, and this is just kind of something I entered in manually. There's no scripts or calculations there. It's just manual based on me looking online at their history of dividend raises. Then this right here is just kind of a summary. So portfolio value right around $6,000. Annual dividend income would be about $136 over the next year if I didn't do anything. And that is about $11.36 per month. And then the dividend yield right now is about 2.9% with average years of increasing dividends of 32 years. So on average, my entire portfolio has been increasing its dividend for 32 years, which is pretty cool. And then the average beta, like I said, about 0.86, which means the portfolio is a little bit less volatile than the market. And the average 5-year dividend CAGR is more like 7%. There's some errors in the dividend data for Apple because of the split. The source I get it from just has some errors in the data, and it's not really split adjusted. It used to be up until a few months ago, and then it got messed up. So I don't really know what's up with that. This is just kind of a little chart of the dividend income on the path to $1,000 a year, which is definitely a long way away, but I'm sure we'll get there. And then this is just kind of the equity and dividend income broken down by sector, so you can see how much each sector is contributing to the portfolio in terms of value and dividend income. So the next tab here is called value over time, and it just tracks some key metrics every single day. So basically, I have a script that runs and enters the metrics here every single day. And it's been running for over a year, back to February of 2022, which is pretty cool. And then it just plots that data here. So we have the actual portfolio value, the dividend CAGR, the dividend income payout ratio, and dividend yield. So definitely lots of progress in terms of the dividend value and dividend income. And obviously the CAGR is kind of messed up because of that data that isn't quite right. And then the next tab here is transactions. So this just records every single buy and sell that I do in the portfolio. So every month I have a script that runs and it will parse the CSV data that I get from Fidelity, and it'll put all that data in the spreadsheet. So we have data going back to October of 2020. All the data here on the left is the buys in purple, and then the red is sells. So not many sells, but I have periodically sold some companies over time. And then this is invested per ticker, and it basically just tells us we have a filter based on the date. So this is saying between May 1st and May 31st in the month of May, how many shares of each stock did I buy, what was the average cost, and how much did I invest, and then how much did I receive in dividends. So right now it's filtered to show which companies pay me the most in dividends, but I could also filter it to see which companies I invested the most in this month as well. So that can kind of just give me a kind of bigger picture view instead of looking at all the individual transactions, because I might buy some companies more than once throughout the month. So this just kind of gives a bigger picture view. And the next tab here is ticker changes, which basically tells us how each company performed over a certain time period. So right now, again, it's just for the month of May here. And, we can see these companies were down, 10, 12%, while some companies were up, 5, 7% in the month. So it can just give us an idea of, first of all, were most companies generally down or up in the month, which right now we can see, in the month of May, most of the companies were down. And then we can also see, which were down the most, which were up the most, stuff like that, just to kind of give us an idea of how the individual holdings did. And then this is the performance tab, which tracks the actual average cost of my holdings. So I have the shares here with the average cost, and that is compared to the current price. And then this right here is just the return per share in dollar amounts, and then the percent return, and then the total return, which is just this return per share times number of shares. And then I also factor in the dividends received to give me a total return and percentage in terms of the dividends as well. So, as I receive more and more dividends, this total return with dividends columns here will look better and better, essentially, because if I'm getting, capital gains or losses, all that is added to by the dividends, and that's added into the total return there. So the next tab here is dividend payments, similar to transactions, but it just lists all the dividend payments instead of buys and sells. And I also have some little handy calculators I can use to, calculate how much I received in dividends over the whole life of the portfolio from, Apple or maybe AbbVie. So AbbVie is a bigger payer, so I've received, over $13 from them over the course of owning them. And then these next few are just some charts. So this shows the dividends received every month. And it just shows the progression there. And same for dividends by quarter, which is here, and then dividends by year. And then this changes over time tab. It's similar to the value over time that we discussed earlier. I made this a really long time ago, and the script is still set up and running, and so I haven't really messed with it, but I almost never look at it. It's just kind of something I have. So it's a similar concept. It lists out, the annual dividends, dividend CAGR every single month, and then it kind of charts it here so we can see the annual dividends and dividend CAGR every month and see the progression there. And then the final tab here is called the variable sheet, and this just holds some kind of environment variables that I use in my various scripts just to kind of keep track of some of the key values essentially that my scripts use, and they will change over time. So I want to keep those sort of in there and not changing, and it's just a easy way I found to reference those instead of I could put them, as constants in the script, but that's a little bit less dynamic and it's harder to see where that data is coming from then. So that's kind of the overview of my dividend portfolio. I know I kind of went quickly through some of it, and there's a lot of calculations behind the scenes and scripting that goes on in order to kind of get all that data in there. But if you do have any questions about how I do things in particular, I would be happy to answer those and maybe help you out with your own spreadsheet. That's really why I make these spreadsheet videos every once in a while, is just to kind of hopefully give some people some ideas and kind of show them what I'm doing, and maybe they can take some ideas from that, or if they do have any problems, I'm more than happy to try to help in any way I can, so feel free to reach out. And if you have any ideas of how I can make my spreadsheet better as well, definitely let me know. I'm always looking to add new features or make it better, and make it also easier for other people to use pieces and parts of it just for their own use. So most of the scripts I use are available on GitHub and stuff like that, so you can kind of just copy those and put them into your script editor, which I've made videos of how to do, and then tweak some little things that are pretty basic, and that will let you just set up some of these scripts on your own to run in your own spreadsheets. So again, let me know if you have any questions or suggestions. Thanks for watching to the end of the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.